The night began like any other, quiet, cold, and still. The streets of Rosefield lay under a blanket of darkness, interrupted only by the occasional flicker of faulty streetlights. In apartment 3B of the Pineview complex, 28-year-old Marcus Hale stared at his television screen, barely paying attention to the late-night movie playing in front of him. His phone buzzed on the coffee table. Another emergency alert. Another warning. Another reason to roll his eyes. For weeks, there had been rumors about a strange virus spreading in nearby cities. The news called it an aggressive strain of rabies. Social media had blown up with footage of people collapsing in the streets, only to get back up, eyes glazed, skin pale, and movements jerky like puppets on broken strings. Most thought it was fake. Others claimed it was a military experiment gone wrong. Marcus hadn't cared. Until tonight. Outside, the sound began, soft at first, almost like someone dragging metal across the sidewalk. Then came the scream. Not one of pain. One of pure terror. He stood up slowly, heart thudding. Another scream followed. Then another. A child this time. His legs moved without thinking, guiding him to the window. He pulled the blinds aside and peered down at the street. 3 people were running. A woman in a bathrobe, a man in pajamas, and a teenage boy holding a baseball bat. Behind them. Marcus froze. Something was chasing them. No, not something. People. But they didn't look right. They were moving too fast, erratic, wild. Their arms flailed, their jaws snapped at the air. One of the runners tripped. The boy turned to help, but it was too late. The attackers pounced like animals. Within seconds, the man was screaming as blood pooled beneath him. Marcus stumbled back from the window, nearly falling. What the hell? His phone buzzed again. Another alert. Emergency broadcast. Do not go outside. Stay indoors. Lock your doors and windows. Avoid contact with infected individuals. This is not a drill. He didn't need a second warning. Within minutes, Marcus had bolted every window and door. He pulled the curtains shut, turned off the lights, and crouched behind his couch, trembling. The sound outside grew louder, more screams, crashes, sirens, gunshots. And beneath it all, the growling. Wet, throaty, inhuman. His mind raced. He thought about his sister, Eliza, who lived across town. He thought about his best friend Darren, who had a baby just last month. Were they safe? Were they trapped like him? He reached for his phone. 1 bar of service. He tried calling Eliza. Nothing. He texted her. No reply. He tried Darren. Voicemail. The world had gone silent. And then, the hallway. Someone was banging on doors. Loud, desperate, thudding fists echoing through the building. Help! Someone help me, a voice cried. Marcus recognized the voice. Mrs. Granger, the 70-year-old widow from 3D. She was always sweet, always carrying those sugar cookies she insisted on sharing. He crawled to the peephole. She was out there, pounding on a neighbor's door, tears streaming down her face. But behind her, Marcus gasped. 3 figures emerged from the stairwell. Bloodied faces. Torn clothes. One had half a jaw. The others hissed like animals. Mrs. Granger, he whispered. She turned at the sound. Too late. The creatures leapt. Marcus clapped a hand over his mouth as her scream rang out, then cut off with a horrible crunch. He backed away, shivering, feeling sick. He had to get out. Or hide. Or both. But where? How? Suddenly, the power died. The TV went dark. The lights in the hallway flickered out. Complete silence. Then, the unmistakable sound of a door being kicked in. They were inside. Marcus stumbled toward his bedroom, locking the door behind him. He opened his closet, grabbed the old baseball bat, and crouched behind the bed. Every sound now felt amplified, the creak of the floorboards, the shuffle of footsteps, the wet panting coming from the hallway. He held his breath as shadowed figures passed the gap beneath his door. One stopped. Sniffed. A low growl. Marcus gripped the bat tighter, sweat pouring down his forehead. This was real. This was happening. The world he knew had just ended. And survival had just begun. Marcus didn't sleep. He didn't even blink. He sat in the dark, clutching the bat so tightly his knuckles had turned pale. Every creak, every groan of the building made his heart lurch. He listened to the shuffling footsteps outside his bedroom door for what felt like hours before they finally faded. He didn't move until sunlight began to seep through the cracks in the window blinds. Cautiously, he rose from behind the bed, his limbs stiff and aching. He placed his ear against the door. Silence. He cracked it open just a little. The hallway was empty, but smeared with blood and something darker. Something thicker. A cold chill settled over his skin. He made his way to the living room. The apartment was quiet now, but something had changed. The city outside was no longer screaming. It was silent. Like it had already died. He peeked through the blinds. Smoke curled from a burning car across the street. A figure limped aimlessly down the sidewalk, dragging what looked like a severed arm. It stopped. Sniffed the air. Then walked on. Marcus stepped back quickly. No one was coming to help. No military. No police. Just smoke, death, and silence. The realization hit hard, you're on your own. His phone was nearly dead, and with the power out, there was no way to charge it. Still, he checked again for messages. Nothing from Eliza. Nothing from Darren. Something thudded faintly above him. A muffled crash, then a scream, short, strangled, and then, silence again. That's when he heard it, 3 quick knocks. Not from the hallway. From the wall. He froze. 3 knocks. A pause. Then 3 more. He stepped closer. The sound was coming from the other side of the wall that connected his apartment to 3C, Kara's place. He didn't know much about her. She'd moved in a few months ago. Tall, quiet, always wore a hoodie and earbuds. He wasn't even sure what she did for work. 3 more knocks. Then a voice, whispering. Marcus? Are you there? His heart jumped. Kara? Oh, thank God. I saw you through the peephole last night. You didn't open your door. He hesitated. They were right behind you. I couldn't. It's okay, she replied. You did the smart thing. I barely made it back inside. One of them tried to grab me. How are you talking through the wall? There's a vent between our apartments. I unscrewed it. Marcus crouched and found the same vent on his side. He pulled it loose. Kara's eye appeared in the gap, wide and bloodshot. They're all over the building, she said. I think some of the neighbors turned. I heard growling in the stairwell all night. Screams too. The whole floor above us is gone. Marcus sat on the floor, grateful for the sound of another living voice. What do we do? There's a fire escape at the end of the hall, Kara whispered. If we're gonna get out, that's our best shot. But we need to move before dark. Wait, you want to go outside? I don't think we have a choice. No one's coming, Marcus. The longer we wait, the more of them there'll be. He was quiet for a long time. I've got a bat, he finally said. What do you have? Kitchen knife. And a hammer. Well, we're practically invincible, he muttered. She chuckled, just barely. Meet me at the fire escape door. 15 minutes. Quietly. He nodded, forgetting for a moment she couldn't see him. 15 minutes later, Marcus was at his door, hand on the knob. His breath came fast, chest tight. He cracked it open. Silence. Step by step, he moved down the hallway. The bloodstains on the carpet had dried. One door hung open, 3D. Mrs. Granger's. He didn't dare look inside. He reached the fire escape door. Kara was already there, crouched low. She wore a black hoodie and jeans, face smudged with dirt, hair tied back in a tight braid. She gave a tight nod. "You made it," she said. "Yeah. Ready?" She turned the handle slowly. The door creaked open, revealing the rusted fire escape outside. The air smelled like smoke and rot. Then, howling. One of them had seen them. From the street below, more heads snapped up. Snarling, screeching, hungry. "Run!" Kara shouted. They bolted down the fire escape, footsteps echoing off the metal. The undead had spotted them. There was no turning back now. Marcus had never known fear like this. Every breath burned in his lungs as he followed Kara down the narrow, swaying fire escape. The screeches behind them echoed through the city like the cries of a dying world. Down below, the infected had already begun swarming toward the building like a tide of teeth and claws. The moment their feet hit the cracked pavement, Kara yelled, "This way!" They sprinted into the alley behind the apartment complex. Trash was scattered everywhere, and the stench of rot was overwhelming. The alley was tight, shadowed, and lined with rusting dumpsters. Kara slid over one and knocked it down behind them, creating a temporary barrier. A shriek answered from the rooftops. "Go! Go!" she shouted. Marcus didn't ask where they were going, he just ran. His bat slapped against his back with every step. His thoughts were a mess, heart hammering so loud it drowned out the chaos around them. They darted through abandoned cars, overturned shopping carts, and shattered glass. Smoke lingered in the air, rising from a bus still burning at the intersection. Fires were everywhere, uncontrolled. Stores had been looted, their windows smashed, and blood painted the sidewalks like broken murals. This wasn't just a local outbreak. This was war. And humanity was losing. They ducked into an old bookstore, the metal security gate half ripped off. Inside, it was dim and dust-choked. Shelves had been knocked over, books torn and scattered like confetti. Kara pulled the gate closed behind them and jammed it shut with a broken broom handle. Marcus collapsed to the floor, trying to catch his breath. "How far did they follow us?" he asked, panting. Kara peeked through the dusty front window. "I don't know. I think we lost them for now. They're fast, but they don't seem to work together. At least, not yet." He looked at her, eyebrows raised. "Yet?" Kara pulled her hoodie down. Her face was streaked with sweat and soot. She wiped her forehead and leaned back against the counter. "They're changing," she said softly. "Getting smarter." Marcus stared at her. "How do you know?" "I've been watching. Listening. At first, they were just running on instinct, sight, sound, movement. But now, some of them linger. They wait. I saw one trying door handles instead of breaking them down. It waited for someone to come out." "That's not possible," Marcus muttered. "You think any of this is possible?" Kara shot back. "Fair point." She reached into her backpack and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper, torn from a journal, it looked like. There were scribbles, codes, and diagrams, barely legible. She handed it to Marcus. "Found this yesterday in an abandoned ambulance. You see that symbol?" She pointed to a sketch in the corner, a black triangle inside a circle, with something like a DNA strand beneath it. "I've seen that before," he said slowly. "On the news. Some biotech company." "Velis Corp," Kara said grimly. "Private research firm. Used to be military affiliated. They had a facility 2 miles from here. Shut down a year ago, supposedly. You think they caused this?" "I don't think. I know." She reached into her bag again and pulled out a flash drive. Marcus blinked. "What is that?" "Proof," she whispered. I used to work IT security for them, part-time. Before the outbreak, someone started wiping records off their system. Everything connected to something labeled Project Rebirth. I downloaded what I could before everything went dark. Marcus stared at her. This girl, this quiet neighbor who barely said a word before now, was holding answers. Real ones. And in a world gone mad, that was worth more than gold. So what now? He asked. We get to the Velis Corp facility, Kara said. It's the only place we might find out what really happened. Maybe even how to stop it. You think there's something left to stop? She looked him dead in the eyes. I think if we don't try, we die either way. Before Marcus could answer, the front gate screeched. They both jumped to their feet. Kara drew her hammer. Marcus gripped his bat. A groan came from outside. Low, hoarse, followed by the sound of dragging feet. Then came another sound, more human. A voice. Hello? Anyone in there? Kara's grip tightened. That could be a trap. Marcus crept to the window and peeked out. 3 figures stood outside. One was a man in a blood-streaked security uniform. The others were a woman carrying a child and a teenage girl holding a crowbar. They looked terrified. Real. Human. They don't look infected, Marcus whispered. But how long can we trust that? Kara's words hung heavy in the air. Because in this new world, trusting the wrong person could be deadlier than any bite. Marcus hesitated, hand hovering over the gate's lock. Kara stood behind him, hammer raised, ready for anything. Outside, the strangers waited, dirty, tired, and scared. Please, the woman said again, her voice cracking. We're not sick. Just let us in. The child in her arms looked barely 5. His face was buried in her shoulder. The teenage girl beside her clutched a crowbar like she'd used it before and didn't want to again. They're just people, Marcus whispered. Kara didn't lower her weapon. You can't know that. People lie. And some of the infected, they don't show symptoms right away. He looked at her, then back at the woman. If it was us out there. Kara sighed through her teeth. She didn't like it. But she gave a small nod. Marcus removed the broom handle and slowly pulled up the security gate. Inside. Now. The group moved fast, slipping into the bookstore like shadows. Marcus slammed the gate behind them and jammed the handle back in place. Thank you, the woman gasped. I'm Sophia. This is my son, Leo. And my niece, Maddie. The guard introduced himself next. Wes. I was stationed at a private security checkpoint downtown when things went bad. Barely made it out. They looked worse up close. Sophia's hands were trembling. Maddie's jeans were torn and blood-streaked, not hers, they said. Leo hadn't said a word. We've been running all night, Wes said. No one's answering radios. No reinforcements. No evacuation plan. Just chaos. Kara studied them all with sharp eyes, her grip on the hammer never loosening. You said you weren't bitten. Swear it. We're clean, Wes replied. Checked ourselves 5 times before we got here. Sophia nodded. We wouldn't risk your lives. We just didn't want to die alone out there. For a while, silence fell over the group. The only sound was Leo softly coughing into his mother's shoulder. Kara finally lowered her hammer and stepped back. We have one rule, she said. No secrets. Not anymore. If anyone hides a bite, or hears something and doesn't tell the rest, we all suffer. Everyone nodded, but the unease was still there. Trust was hard currency in the apocalypse, and no one had much of it left. They spent the next hour barricading windows and sorting supplies. Wes found an unopened first aid kit behind the counter. Sophia rationed out some granola bars from her backpack. Kara checked every room, every corner, while Marcus flipped through the flash drive again on a half-dead tablet. The files were encrypted. But even the names of the documents made his blood run cold. Patient 0 report. Mutation timeline. Host behavior analysis. Phase 2 deployment strategy. What the hell was Velis Corp doing, he muttered. Kara crouched next to him. Creating something they couldn't control. A cure, maybe, or a weapon. Either way, they failed. Just then, Maddie approached them, voice low. I heard something, she said, glancing over her shoulder. In the alley. Not the infected, someone talking. Marcus tensed. Talking? Yeah. Just a few words. But it wasn't like, panicked. It sounded calm. Too calm. They followed her to the back of the bookstore. The alley beyond was dark, still. But then, faintly, Marcus heard it too. A voice. Reclaim this zone, gather test subjects, proceed with order. It was male. Robotic. Like a soldier repeating orders, or a drone feeding lines from a speaker. Kara grabbed her binoculars and peered through a crack in the boarded window. Oh no, she whispered. What is it? Marcus asked. Kara's face went pale. It's not survivors. It's Velis Corp. 3 figures in black hazmat suits moved down the alley, rifles at their sides, helmets sealed tight. They scanned the area with devices that beeped quietly. Behind them rolled a small, sleek drone with blinking red lights. They're sweeping neighborhoods, Kara said. Looking for something. Test subjects, Marcus repeated. They're not saving people. They're experimenting. Wes joined them, grim. I saw them before. At the checkpoint. Thought they were military at first. They ignored the infected. Just walked past them. Like they knew who to look for. Do you think they're tracking the flash drive? Sophia asked. Kara nodded slowly. If they knew what I took, they won't stop until they get it back. A loud thud made everyone jump. Then another. Someone, or something, was banging on the front gate. Then came the snarling. The infected had found them. Upstairs. Marcus yelled. Now. They scrambled to the back staircase, Kara leading the charge. As they reached the second floor, the metal gate downstairs finally snapped. The dead were coming in. And Velis Corp was watching. The groan of twisted metal rang through the bookstore as the front gate collapsed under the weight of the undead. The screeching of rusted hinges was followed by snarls, gurgling growls, and the sharp thud of feet dragging across broken tile. Go! Kara shouted, leading the charge up the narrow back staircase. Marcus gripped the tablet tight, cramming the flash drive into his pocket as he stumbled up behind her. Sophia clutched Leo close, whispering calming words to the terrified child. Maddie and Wes brought up the rear, weapons ready. The infected were already pouring into the bottom floor. The sound of bookshelves toppling and glass breaking echoed up the stairwell like the end of the world knocking at their heels. They reached the second floor, offices, a storage room, and a boarded-up fire exit. Help me with this. Kara shouted to Wes. They yanked at the barricade covering the fire door, ripping away nailed planks as the others spread out to secure the room. Will this even hold? Marcus asked, glancing at the door behind them. No, Kara replied. That's why we're leaving. With one last yank, the boards gave way. Kara kicked open the fire door, and a gust of cold night air rushed in. The fire escape led down to the rear alley, dangerous, but less suicidal than staying inside. Wes peeked down first, weapon drawn. Clear for now. Move fast. One by one, they climbed out. Leo clung to his mother as they carefully made their way down the rickety stairs. Kara was the last out, making sure the group was ahead of her. But the second Marcus set foot on the alley ground, he froze. Red lights blinked in the fog. The Velis Corp drone hovered 10 feet above the alley. It pivoted toward them with a soft mechanical whir. Its scanner beeped rapidly, picking up movement, heat, maybe even biosignatures. Kara dropped low beside Marcus. They know we're here. Before he could respond, a dart shot from the drone and struck the ground near them. No explosion, no alarm. Just a hiss, and suddenly, a cloud of green vapor spread across the alley floor. Gas! Wes yelled, grabbing Sophia's arm. Back! Up the stairs! Kara pulled a flare from her backpack and lit it, hurling it directly at the drone. The burst of flame disoriented the machine, sending it veering into the side of the building with a satisfying crack. Sparks rained down, and it sputtered before crashing to the pavement. They didn't wait to see if more were coming. Instead of returning inside, they bolted down the alley. Kara pointed toward the metro station entrance across the street, barely visible through the smoke and haze. There, she shouted. The underground, if it's not overrun, we can lose them. Dodging burning wreckage and weaving between overturned cars, the group sprinted toward the entrance. The metal gate was halfway closed, but there was enough space to crawl under. One by one, they slid into the darkness. The air was heavy with dust and the scent of burnt oil. The flickering emergency lights painted the concrete walls with a dull, sickly glow. Inside the station, silence reigned. This place gives me the creeps, Maddie whispered. Better creeps than corpses, Kara muttered. She handed Marcus a flashlight. We need to find another exit. Something that leads out further from the city. They moved as a unit, footsteps echoing off the tile. The platform below was eerily still. An old subway train sat abandoned, its doors hanging open. A puddle of blood stained the floor near the steps, but there were no bodies. No movement. It's like everyone just vanished, Sophia said. Wes moved to the edge of the platform, peering into the dark tunnel. Tracks go both ways. If we follow them, we might reach another station, or a service exit. Marcus checked his pocket, hand tightening around the flash drive. What if they're underground too? Kara looked at him. Then we find out what they're hiding before they find us. Suddenly, Leo tugged on his mother's coat. Mom, there's someone on the train. Everyone froze. Wes raised his weapon and stepped forward cautiously. The inside of the train car was dim. One of the doors creaked as it shifted on its hinge. A figure sat motionless near the back, slumped, but upright. Kara climbed in first, her hammer raised. Don't shoot, a voice croaked. I'm not infected. The figure lifted his head. He wore a lab coat, filthy and torn, but the Velis Corp logo was still visible on the collar. Marcus stepped closer. You worked for them? The man nodded weakly. I can tell you everything. The scientist's face was pale and soaked in sweat. He could barely hold himself upright, one hand gripping the seat as if gravity itself was trying to pull him down. Kara kept her hammer raised. If you're playing us, I'll crush your skull before you finish your next lie. The man weakly lifted both hands. I'm not lying. I was in the lab when it all started, Velis Corp's biocontainment sector. I didn't make the virus. But I watched it evolve. Marcus stepped forward. What happened? He coughed into a dirty sleeve, then looked up. They were experimenting with a genetic pathogen, supposed to increase neural response time, enhance healing. We were told it was for trauma victims. Soldiers. But something went wrong. The virus mutated. It started reanimating dead tissue. At first, it was just lab animals. His voice cracked. Then they tested it on prisoners. Death row inmates. I didn't know until it was too late. Sophia sat with Leo, shielding his eyes. Maddie stood near the train doors, scanning the station nervously. Kara hadn't lowered her weapon. Marcus's voice was calm but firm. Why were they testing on humans? The scientist let out a broken laugh. Because they wanted this. Not the collapse, not the chaos. But the obedience. Imagine a soldier that doesn't need rest. Doesn't feel pain. Takes orders. Never questions. They created zombies on purpose. Maddie whispered, horrified. They lost control, the scientist said. The virus spread fast, mutated faster. And when the panic started, they went dark. Killed half the team. The rest of us scattered. Then what do they want now? Kara asked. Why are they still out there, hunting people? The man leaned forward, eyes sunken. Because they think they can fix it. Contain it. Start again. Your data to them, samples. Hosts. Anyone who survived exposure is valuable. And that drive, he pointed to Marcus's pocket, has all the original research logs. They will kill anyone to get it back. Marcus glanced at Kara. We can't just run forever. The scientist nodded. There's a secure bunker outside the city, Project Echo. All the backup servers are there. If you can get to it, you can expose everything. Leak it. Burn them from the inside. Kara lowered her hammer slightly. Where is it? I'll draw you a map, he said. But just as he reached for a pen from his coat, something slammed onto the roof of the subway car. Thud. 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 Everyone froze. The metal above them groaned, echoing with the weight of something large moving above. Then came the screeching. Kara grabbed Leo and shoved everyone toward the back door. Out. Now. The roof buckled as a monstrous figure crashed through it. Its body was grotesque, bloated, discolored, with bone plating protruding from its shoulders. Its eyes glowed faintly in the dark. The scientist screamed. The creature lunged forward with a roar. Wes opened fire, the shots deafening in the enclosed space. Maddie helped Sophia and Leo out through the rear of the train as Marcus dragged the scientist behind them. The bullets slowed it, but barely. Go! Wes shouted. I'll hold it. No, we're not, Kara began, but he cut her off with a desperate look. Go! She hesitated, then turned and ran. As they sprinted down the platform, a huge explosion behind them shook the station. The windows of the train shattered outward, fire spilling from the broken roof. Wes was gone. Marcus grabbed the scientist and helped him limp through a maintenance door marked authorized personnel only. Behind them, the roars of more infected echoed through the station. The explosion had drawn them. We can't stay underground, Kara said as they entered the dark tunnel. There's a hatch up ahead, the scientist rasped. It leads to the surface. To the edge of the quarantine wall. Quarantine wall? Marcus asked. They built it weeks before the outbreak went public, the scientist replied. They knew it was coming. They just didn't care about stopping it, only surviving it. The tunnel led them to a rusted ladder. Kara climbed first and pushed open the hatch. Moonlight spilled in through the smoke. They emerged in a ruined alleyway, the quarantine wall rising like a prison fence in the distance. Beyond that, freedom. But between them and that wall, a city still crawling with the dead. The skyline was a twisted silhouette of destruction, collapsed towers, burned-out buildings, and smoke trails rising like ghostly fingers into the night. The quarantine wall loomed in the distance, covered in barbed wire, motion sensor lights, and gun turrets that blinked silently in the fog. The group crouched behind a wrecked van, catching their breath after the sprint from the subway hatch. Every noise, every creak, every gust of wind, set their nerves on edge. We're close, Kara whispered, scanning the way ahead with her binoculars. 3 blocks. Maybe less. Close doesn't mean safe, Marcus said, checking his pistol. We don't know what's between us and that wall. The scientist, now barely able to walk, clutched a hand-drawn map. There's a drainage tunnel under the base of the wall. Unused, maybe forgotten. It's not on any official layout. If we reach it, we can slip through. Leo sat quietly beside his mother, eyes wide. Sophia stroked his hair and gave Kara a hopeful glance. Is that really our best shot? It's our only shot, Kara said. The main gates are crawling with mercenaries. If they see us, they'll shoot first and tag bodies later. Suddenly, a guttural howl echoed down the street. A group of infected spilled out from a nearby building, 5 of them, sprinting on all fours like wolves. Their limbs were bent wrong, faces twisted with rage and hunger. "Go!" Kara shouted, grabbing the scientist by the arm. "Move!" The survivors dashed through the street, feet pounding the cracked pavement. The horde gave chase, knocking over trash bins and scattering debris. Maddie turned and fired, dropping one of the faster ones, but more kept coming. "Right!" Marcus shouted, spotting an alley leading down toward an old construction site. They ducked inside, using the scaffolding and piles of debris to slow the creatures behind them. Kara spotted a manhole cover half buried under dirt. "There," she yelled. "That's our way down." Marcus and Maddie rushed over, prying the lid open as the growls grew louder. One of the creatures leapt from a second-story window and landed on top of Kara, clawing at her face. She rolled with it, hammer swinging up into its jaw with a sickening crack. "Gio!" she screamed. "Get the others in." Sophia, Leo, and the scientist climbed into the tunnel first, followed by Maddie. Marcus waited, pulling Kara down just as another infected slammed into the edge of the hole. The last thing they saw before the cover slammed shut was a dozen more swarming in. Inside, the tunnel was narrow, damp, and pitch dark. The air smelled of mold and decay, and the only light came from Kara's flickering headlamp. The scientist gasped for breath, sliding along the wall. "Just a little further. The exit's sealed, but there's a weak point. If we can break through." "Shoo," Maddie hissed, holding up her hand. The sound of footsteps echoed behind them. Not the shuffle of the infected, these were heavy. Controlled. Boots. Marcus whispered, "They followed us." Kara's eyes narrowed. Velis Corp. They pushed forward faster, sloshing through ankle-deep water. Ahead, a concrete wall blocked the path, but cracks ran through its center. Kara spotted steel reinforcement behind the surface. "Marcus, help me," she said. Together, they slammed a broken pipe against the wall, again and again, the sound ringing through the tunnel. The footsteps behind them grew louder. Shouts now, human voices. Armed. Closing in. The wall cracked. Another strike, and it caved inward, revealing a small tunnel on the other side with a steel grate half rotted by rust. Maddie crawled through first, then Sophia and Leo. The scientist followed, moaning with each movement. Kara pushed Marcus through, then turned to see the tunnel behind her light up with red beams. Laser sights. "Gio!" she shouted, squeezing into the hole and yanking the crumbling grate down behind her just as bullets tore through the air. The tunnel beyond led up, steep, slick with moss, but open. At the top, they found themselves at the base of the wall, just behind a large generator station. The barbed wire above sparked with low voltage. "We're here," the scientist whispered. "This is it." Kara scanned the area. No guards. No drones. Just silence and fog. Then they heard it. The distant thud of helicopter blades. "Extraction team," the scientist muttered. "They're coming for the drive." Marcus clutched the flash drive tightly. "We have to go now." Kara nodded. "Up the wall. Over it. And we don't look back." The top of the wall was covered in a lattice of rusted barbed wire and cracked solar panels, flickering faintly in the gray morning light. Fog rolled in from the ruined city, and just beyond the perimeter fence lay what looked like peace, green fields, abandoned roads, and a promise of safety. But behind the group, the thunder of helicopter blades grew louder. Kara didn't hesitate. "Maddie, boost Leo up. Now." Maddie cupped her hands, launching the boy onto the lowest ledge. Kara scrambled up next, slicing her hand on a jagged wire as she cleared the edge. She reached down, pulling Leo up to the top beside her. Sophia followed, panting, holding back tears. The scientist groaned, struggling to climb. "My leg, I can't." "I've got him," Marcus said, throwing the man's arm over his shoulder. He looked back down the tunnel behind them. Red laser dots danced on the tunnel's mouth. "Go!" Kara shouted. "Hurry!" Gunfire erupted. The tunnel behind them exploded in noise and dust as bullets shredded through it. Maddie dropped low and returned fire with short, controlled bursts, giving Marcus and the scientist time to climb. But one of the bullets caught the scientist in the side. He gasped and collapsed just beneath the wall. No, and oh! Marcus dropped to his knees, trying to lift him, but the man was bleeding out fast. I won't make it, the scientist gasped. Take it, take the truth, burn them. He pulled a bloodied notebook from his coat and shoved it into Marcus's hands. Then the light faded from his eyes. Kara's voice cut through the chaos. Marcus, now! He didn't argue. He scaled the wall in seconds, and Maddie followed close behind, bullets sparking off the steel and wire. Just as she cleared the top, the helicopter swung into view, a sleek, black model with no markings. A sniper leaned out the side. Down! Kara screamed. The sniper fired. Maddie shrieked and fell, blood spraying from her shoulder. Kara lunged and caught her hand just as she started to slide off the top of the wall. I've got you. Kara grunted. Hold on. Maddie's face twisted in pain. Don't, let go. Marcus crawled across the top of the wall and helped pull her up. The sniper aimed again. Suddenly, a second roar broke through the sky. Another helicopter. But this one wasn't Veliscorp. It was older. Civilian. And it had a spray-painted message across its side, Resistance Lives. The Resistance helicopter opened fire on the Veliscorp chopper. Bullets riddled its fuselage, and within seconds, the dark bird began to spin, smoke trailing behind it as it lost altitude and slammed into a building below in a fiery explosion. The wall trembled with the shockwave. From the Resistance chopper, a voice crackled through a loudspeaker. You alive up there? Kara waved. We've got injured. We need extraction. The helicopter hovered above the field just outside the wall, a rope ladder descending. Marcus lowered Leo down first, then Sophia. Kara followed with Maddie, who winced with every movement, her shoulder drenched in blood. When they were all on the ground, the Resistance crew moved fast. Medics rushed to Maddie and Sophia. The pilot nodded to Marcus. We picked up your signal from the emergency ping. You've got something they don't want the world to see? Marcus handed him the flash drive and the blood-stained notebook. Everything's in here. Proof of what Veliscorp did. Of how they started all of this. The pilot tucked the files into his jacket. Then let's show the world. The chopper lifted off as the city burned behind them. The infected wailed in the distance, still roaming the ruins of what had once been civilization. But the group was safe, for now. Leo clung to his mom. Maddie leaned against Kara, who stared out the window, her face streaked with dirt and dried blood. We made it, Maddie whispered. Some of us, Kara said quietly. Wes, the scientist, they didn't make it for nothing. Marcus looked down at the files in the pilot's hands. Now the world will know. And maybe, just maybe, we can start again. The helicopter flew into the rising sun, toward what was left of the world. And behind them, in the broken city they escaped, a new dawn burned through the smoke. The end.